NIST looks to the future of cryptography. SHA-1, 3DES and SHA-224 are on the naughty step. NIST has driven standards for cryptography for decades and is now looking to the future with the publication of a draft entitled Transitioning the Use of Cryptographic Algorithms and Key Lengths. It is a really informative read and it outlines that SHA-1, a 160-bit hash, is being retired in the near future and adds in the newly defined standards for post-quantum cryptography such as ML-KEM for key exchange and ML-DSA for digital signatures. Overall, NIST defines that the methods are either acceptable, deprecated, they will be dropped in the near future, disallowed, they should not be used, or legacy, they should only be used for legacy applications. Move away from 112-bit security. The DES method uses a 56-bit equivalent key size. While the key is 64 bits in length, but 8 of the bits are used for checksums, so really it's a 56-bit equivalent key size for symmetric key encryption. This was then upgraded to 3DES, otherwise known as TDEA or Triple DES encryption algorithm, and which uses two encryption key elements, K1 and K2, to give an equivalent key size of 112 bits. Basically, Bob takes the plain text, then will encrypt with DES using K1, then will decrypt with DES using K2, and then will re-encrypt with DES with K1 again. This gives us an encrypt, decrypt, encrypt flow. The reason that the 3DES method uses EDE, encrypt, decrypt, encrypt, is where K1 is equal to K2, and where it will just become a single 56-bit key and a standard DES encryption. This is because the first two stages would cancel out each other, and then the last stage would give us our standard DES encryption with K1. This allowed for compatibility with DES implementations. While 3DES is still used in some finance applications, NIST is now warning that its 112-bit key size needs to be upgraded to at least 112-bit security. There are also some public key methods, such as for RSA and key exchange, that have 112-bit equivalent security, and thus NIST wants to generally upgrade all cryptographics to be at least 128 bits. This needs to happen before the 31st of December 2030, along with SHA-1 and SHA-224 hashes being disallowed by the same date. 3DES is now disallowed for encryption and only allowed for decryption with legacy use. Symmetric key modes. For block modes in symmetric key encryption, ECB electronic codebook should not be used for encryption, as it does not use a salt or initialization vector. NIST defines the acceptable modes are CBC, CFB, CTR, OFB, CCM, and GCM. For format preserving modes, such as for FF1 and FF3, only FF1 is acceptable. Digital signatures. With a digital signature, we have a key pair and we sign a hash with our private key, and then we will verify that signature with our public key. For digital signatures, DSA is not allowed for signature generation, and where only ECDSA, EDDSA, and RSA are the approved methods, as long as they have security levels above 112 bits. The new post-quantum cryptography method of ML-DSA, otherwise known as dilithium, is fully approved for the parameter set defined in FIPS 204. Random bit generators. For random bit generators, the focus is on SHA-2 and SHA-3 for long-term security, and where SHA-1 and the 224-bit hash functions will be deprecated and disallowed after 2030. Key exchange. The usage of key strengths less than or equal to 112 bits are being deprecated, and where elliptic curves with at least 112-bit security are allowed. These include the curves of P256, P384, and P512, along with the brain pool curves, but not curves that are 224 bits in their operation, such as for P224. For key encapsulation with RSA, we see the limits of 128-bit security applying after 2030. For the newly defined key encapsulation methods of ML-KEM 512, ML-KEM 768, and ML-KEM 1024 are fully approved. Key derivation functions. Overall, these should have hashing methods with at least 256 bits, so that SHA-1, SHA-224, and SHA-512/224 and SHA-3/224 are deprecated through 2030 and then are legacy after 2030. All other hash functions are acceptable. For hash functions themselves, as previously defined, all the hash functions that have a size less than 256 bits are deprecated through to 2030 and then disallowed after that. With tuple hash and parallel hash, we have derivatives of SHA-3, and these are acceptable. With key wrapping involves us taking a private key and then wrapping it, typically with public key encryption, so that we would have a private key or a symmetric key, and then we would encrypt it with our public key, and then to be able to decrypt it with our private key. For key wrapping, the usage of 3DES is not allowed anymore. MAX. With a message authentication code, we take a hash of a message and then we use a shared symmetric key between Bob and Alice. Then Bob signs the hash with the shared symmetric key and sends the MAC along with the message. Alice will then check the hash of the message she receives and then applies the same symmetric key that Bob had. And if they check out, then she knows that it was Bob who sent the message and also that the message has not been changed. For MAX, it's the same story, with anything less than 256 bits for the hash and less than 128-bit security for the key are deprecated to 2030 and then disallowed after that. XOF. With XOF, we actually can create a hash output that can vary in length. NIST very much sees SHA-128 and SHA-256 as the future of XOFs and have defined these in FIPS 202.